5.
It was 4 years ago today that my nightmares began. I still remember the night like it was yesterday. Every time I blink, the faces that I saw haunt me. It was the 4th of February 2013 when I finally faced my fears and went on the deep web. I heard and read all the stories of what people got up to when they went on the deep web. But what really got me curious is when I overheard a group of people at college talking about the deep web, and how even the government can't stop the vile stuff on there. Don't get me wrong, I didn't go on the deep web just to see the vile stuff. I'm not a pervert, and I'm not some kind of satanic mental head case. I was just a stupid dumbass that had to see for himself if it was all true, or was it just a myth? 4 years later, and I still regret the decision that I made. I got on Tor. I was told that Tor is a must when going on the deep web, as it keeps you anonymous, and trust me, if the stories are true, then you most certainly want to keep yourself anonymous. I was surfing on the deep web for a couple of hours. At first, it was quite interesting. It was full of links and chat sites. Most of them were talking about drugs, snuff films, etc. But nothing too graphic. It was only when I clicked on a link on a chat site that everything seemed to change. Instantly, I jumped out of my skin. There were faces popping up all over the screen. "Help me! Help me!" they would say slowly, and then another face would pop up. What was crazy was that they were dead. It was just heads, blood coming down their faces, and eyes with a fake movable mouth, like the annoying orange. It was so bizarre and creepy. I couldn't get the images out of my head. I felt physically sick. What the hell was I watching, and why the fuck am I still digging even deeper? I clicked on a face of a female. She had long, blonde hair. She couldn't have been no older than 23 years old. And there she was, begging me to help her. I knew I couldn't help her. She was already dead, with her eyes gouged out. "Do I look pretty?" Instantly afterwards, there was this evil, demonic laughter. It gave me the chills. I was actually shaking, begging for myself to stop. But I didn't. When I clicked on her face, the screen started spinning around. What the hell's going on now? My mouth was dry. The feeling of dread taking over my whole mind. I was now not in control. I dug so deep into the darkness of the dark web that I was now in some kind of trance. It was like I just had no control in what I was doing. A small box was zooming in. Second by second it got larger. It turned out to be a video of 3 men. They were sitting on a table with these freaky masks on. The masks of demons. They would turn their heads side to side and then laugh. The door beside them opened slowly. A young male walked through. He was in tears, begging for his life. But he just carried on walking towards the 3 men. Why didn't he just run away? Why didn't he attack these crazy men? One of the men in the mask stopped turning his head side to side and just stopped. I was glued to the screen. I couldn't even blink. The man in the mask then turned his head slowly around. I couldn't control my legs from shaking. I was so scared. It was just so intense. It was worse than watching any horror movie because I was quite sure what I was watching was real, and it seemed too unpredictable. The man in the demon mask then got up slowly and began laughing. A laugh that still gives me chills. As he laughed, the man begging for his life just fell to the ground. He must have felt so much fear that his body and mind just shut down. He was picked up and put over the shoulder of this demonic man that was built like a bodybuilder, and then tied up with his arms in the air. There he was, just hanging there lifeless. That was until his face was covered in red. I soon realised that the masked men threw a glass of what looked like to be blood all over his face. That soon woke up the man, who began screaming instantly. As soon as he began screaming, his ear was cut off. It was so quick, I vomited all over the floor. The masked men were laughing as they put this man's ear next to their ears and then began licking the ear. They basically, in the next 3 hours, tortured this poor man. The pain he was in was so extreme that he kept passing out and then waking up to find that his nightmare was real. It got to the point where the man could no longer scream. He couldn't no longer cry. He just hanged there, lifeless. Am I just as bad as these evil men for watching this barbaric torture? I wanted to help, but there was nothing I could do. Instead, I still have nightmares of the faces that I saw that still beg for me for help every time I close my eyes. Maybe that's what I deserve for watching a man get brutally destroyed. First mentally and then physically. Maybe this is my punishment. In the end, he was cut up into pieces and put into a dustbin. For the whole time, I just stared into the screen. I couldn't move. I was traumatized. Please don't go onto the dark web. It's just not worth it. It's 4 years since I went on the deep web, and my life will never be the same again. The blood on their eyes dripping down their face with the creepy fake mouths begging for help still give me nightmares.
4.
I am a carpenter. Sometimes I'll take on side jobs for friends and family. So this is where my story starts. My wife has a little house cleaning business. One of her customers needed the side of her house painted, so I took on the job. I have been in the house before to do little things, but never been in the house for more than a few hours. So on the first day, I just moved furniture and patched walls. The day went well. Everything was ready to be painted the next day. Day 2, I started to cut in the walls with paint. I had some good music up loud, and I was in my painting mode. I was cutting in around the door when I felt someone behind me. When I looked, there was an old man standing there watching me. No one was home. He had older clothes on, blue jeans and a Wrangle button-up shirt. Just as fast as he appeared, he was gone visually, but I felt someone next to me the rest of the day. I just took it as me being tired or something. When I got home, I told my wife about it, but not the homeowners. The following day, I got to the house. It was time to roll the walls with paint, and before the paint hit the walls, I heard the loudest crash ever. I ran into the next room. I looked around, and the only thing I could see that might have made that crash sound was an old antique phone on the floor. It was big and heavy. It had to have fallen off the wall maybe. I finished out the day without issues. I called the homeowner to let her know about the phone. She told me that the phone was never on the wall and it had been laying on the floor since she bought it and never got around to hanging it up. I knew it had to be the old man I'd seen the day before. It gave me chills. I never told them what I experienced in their home. After the job was done, my wife had her weekly cleaning over there. After cleaning the bathroom, she was in that room and she heard the toilet seat slam down. It scared her bad enough to bring it up to the homeowners. The man said the day I started painting and after I left, he got home, walked in the house, and he felt someone walk past him and the door slammed shut, but he didn't see anyone there. Since then, from time to time, my wife and the homeowners will hear things and things getting moved around. Jackets will be hanging up, then be laying on the table. My wife and her helper that helps her clean houses nicknamed him Leonard. I never believed in ghosts, but I have no way of explaining what I witnessed.
3.
I am 12 years old. Here is a background check on my house. It's an old house, probably made in the 1970s. It's a duplex, so it was once a huge house. My dad and my brothers had some game tournament they had to go to, and my mum had work, so I would stay home alone for many hours. It had been about 3 to 4 hours, and I was in the middle of a Call of Duty match, and my mum had called for me from her room. Forgetting my mum wasn't home, I went in there. Chills running down my spine when I got to the realisation that my mum had not gotten home from work yet. To make things creepier, my game, the TV and the console had turned off, so had the living room light, when I knew I hadn't turned off anything. I also got a call from a blocked number on my cell phone. It didn't say anything, but I heard a baby toddler in the background laughing. When my mum got home, she came home before the rest of my family. Her face went pale, because she too had an experience. My mum was home alone because me and the rest of my family had went to the local pizza place to get some dinner. She thought she heard my little brother yelling, "Help!" She and my brother have about the same voice. She knew she was home alone and hadn't forgotten. To make things even creepier, her computer turned off, so did her TV and her light. I haven't done any research on the house to see who else had lived in it, but I certainly know that something bad happened.
2.
I haven't told anyone my story, as I know no one would believe me. I was only 5 at the time and had no clue what had happened until later on. I had a bedroom of my own which was next to my brother's room and down the hall from my parents' room. It was a normal school night, meaning 6:30 bedtime. I was in bed asleep when I woke up suddenly. I had a bedside table next to me with a digital clock on it. I checked the time and the clock said 2:36 AM. I didn't think anything of this. I just sat up for a drink and planned to go straight to sleep after that. It wasn't till I sat up that I started panicking. I saw my teddy floating in mid-air. What seemed like fingers were inside it, as if it were being held by some invisible person. I also have a Barbie doll, which I could never get to stand up. What I saw next changed my life. That doll standing up straight with the hair torn out, staring at me. It seemed to be staring into my soul. This was the final straw for me. I screamed and cried with horror. My mum had heard me and ran in, but before she reached the door, they had dropped to the floor. She took me downstairs as I was clearly shaken. She was in the kitchen making me a glass of milk when our dog, Hunter, came in the room, but the sound of his claws hitting the floor was very slow, like a zombie. I turned around and he wasn't there. I turned back round to see Hunter inches from my face with pure black eyes. He normally had brown eyes, baring his teeth and growling at me, as if he were about to attack. My mum had heard him and immediately came running in. She saw his eyes and had to get something to knock him out. That moment, my mum rang my nan and granddad and asked if me and my family could stay there for a bit, which of course they said yes. We stayed there for 3 days before we found a new place and moved out of that demon-riddled house and into a new one on the other side of England. As we pulled away, I saw a woman standing in the kitchen staring out at us, but she wasn't of this century. She was dressed in Victorian clothing. I have never been back to that house since, and it's unknown as to whether any new tenants have also been driven out of the home by this demonic spirit.
1.
The first time this happened, I was only 7 years old. I was sitting on my bed in my bedroom getting ready for bed when I heard a voice. It was whispering my name. Me being at the age of 7, I wasn't afraid, so I decided to see where the voice is coming from. I got out of the bed and started to walk towards the voice. I walked out of my room and down the hall, where I stopped at my sister's bedroom door. Now I was starting to freak out because my sister wasn't at home. She was on her holidays, so as quickly as I came down to her door, I ran back to my room. I was up all night scared out of my mind, but it didn't happen again for a few years. Skip a few years till when I was 11. I was in my sister's room, which was now my room because she had moved out, and I was sick. I had long forgotten about what had happened in the past. I was sick, so I slept all day and stayed up all night. It was around 5:57 when once again after 4 years I heard that voice again. Once again it was saying my name, but this time instead of it being far away, it sounded like it was right beside my ear. Now that I was 11, I was a bit more scared, so I looked all around my room and I couldn't see anything. That is, until a shadow walked right onto my door. Thinking that I was just paranoid, I moved all of the objects in my room, but yet the shadow didn't move. I tried not to notice it and forgot about it for a while until I heard the same voice again, but this time instead of saying my name, he said,
"Why are you ignoring me?"
It had sent chills down my spine, and when I looked at the door to see if the shadow was still there, it was gone. Freaking out, I looked around my room, and when I looked at the end of my bed, I nearly screamed. There stood a transparent figure looking at me. You could clearly see that it was a man. Scared out of my pants, I ran into my parents' room and I jumped under the covers and slept there for the night, hoping that whoever or whatever that was, that it would be gone by tomorrow.